we go. Hello, today is, what is it, 17th of February, and we're here for office hours to talk about all things SEO. We had a couple of, one question submitted, and we have a couple of questions in the queue. So I would like to address the submitted question first, and that's from you, Tricia.
Yes.
You said you're talking about URLs for SEO.
Yes, the best, what is it called? Structure, I guess.
Yeah.
Especially when like you've got a blog and other things, because I know it's changed over the years. So I want to make sure that I'm doing the current way.
The cool, you want to be cool.
I want to be, with the cool kids. Yes.
Okay, because that's all SEO is all about, being cool.
Yeah.
All right. So what are your two options you're considering?
So it used to be that you would do like domain.com/blog/ and then the name of your article blog.
Yeah.
But then it changed to not have blog in there. And that's the way I typically do it now, is to leave out that blog part in there. Is that still the cool way to do it, or what are your thoughts?
So if we're talking about thoughts of cool, that's totally different than, does it matter to Google?
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. Is
right.
It Google?
So the short answer is Google don't care.
Okay.
Right.
So
do whatever makes sense for you.
Okay.
My preference, because Google doesn't care, is to add the word blog in the URL when appropriate. For, let's just say, let's say most of the time it's appropriate. So we don't have to get into the when it's appropriate. But I really like being able to filter my Google Analytics data based on blog post performance, and having that in the URL really, really helps. There's been some sites I've worked with for years, and I'm like, oh, I really wish I could simply look at the performance of the blog, or weed out the blog posts to only consider, so if you put the URL blog in the URL, that helps you do better analysis of your site, which will help you make better marketing decisions. Let's, for instance, say you wanted to determine why you have a very high bounce rate on your website. Now, we've kind of talked about why that's kind of a baloney metric, but let's say your client asked that. Okay, well, we know just by the nature of what a blog is it's going to have a very high bounce rate. So if we can then go in and say, okay, I'm going to exclude all pages, including the sections /blog/ from the report. Now I can see the bounce rate for non-blog pages and determine if there is a serious problem with the rest of the site.
Okay.
There have been other things like, I really recommend for almost all my clients consistent and regular blogging. Like, it's just a service I provide everybody, because of the long tail and all kinds of reasons, internal links, having consistent blogs going really helps with SEO. Sometimes, every once in a while, a client will say, hey, how's my blog doing? Or what are the most important pages, blog posts? Now I can filter by blog, and I can say, okay, all these are there. Now, I've seen some cases where they call blog something else, like inspiration and tips, or, hey, that's okay, because there's nothing magic about the word blog. Yeah. So if you find, let's say, I do have a client. They don't use the word blog in their URL, nor do they use it on their site, but they do use the word news. And so we just publish in their news section once a week another blog post. It doesn't matter to Google or anybody whether the URL says news or blog.
Yeah.
So but now I can do all those benefits. I can say, here's the performance of your blog over the last year. Here's how many customers you've got. Here's how much traffic you got. Here's how your social media has done. So I really do like inserting that in the URL, but just something to distinguish. If we get advanced, you could do things like remarketing. So let's say you wanted to remarket your website services to people who visited your blog. You could set a remarketing cookie very easily based on people who have only visited your blog and not visited another page. And if you have blog in the URL, that becomes really easy. If
Yeah.
you don't, that becomes really hard. So there's all kinds of advantages that really
Yeah.
aren't SEO issues
Mhm.
of doing it that way,
Okay.
but I wouldn't change it.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. Yeah.
I would keep it the way it was. There's no advantage, because if you were to change the URL to insert blog based on my recommendation, now Google is going to de-index all that content as it decides what to do with it as it re-indexes it. And ultimately, you're not going to get a benefit. So you're just going to lose traffic for a month or two while Google figures out what to do with all those new URLs. And so it doesn't really help. But if you're doing a new site, I probably would want to put everything under one
Okay.
section.
Yeah. Okay. And so also, like, if you only had a couple of blog posts on there, let's say, and you wanted to go ahead and it didn't have it and you wanted to insert it, would the redirect help with that?
Oh, you'd have to do a redirect.
You would, but
Always.
okay. Yeah.
Always do a redirect, because the URLs change it, and that will expedite Google's ability to
Redirect it. Okay.
find the new content, but you'll still see a hit because Google will notice the URL change.
Okay.
So
Okay.
just so if it's a handful of posts, okay, maybe it's worth it. If they have hundreds of posts, might not be worth it.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Okay.
but that's a very interesting question.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Lavanya, sounds like you got a nasty gram from Google.
Yeah.
We're here for you. Tell us about your nasty gram.
Well, it says coverage issue was detected, and that here I'll show you the email, and then I'll show you. Can I share?
I think so. Yes.
Okay.
But notice we'll see everything, so make sure we're only seeing what we need to see.
Okay. I think that's the right one. Can you see?
There we go. Yeah, there it is. Okay. Coverage issues detected on your website.
Mm-hmm. So you
500 error. Okay.
Yeah, so when you click on fix coverage issues, it'll take me over to my search console,
Great,
which
great.
is I went in, I found this, which is I'm sure she's advertising me on her website.
Very nice.
So earlier I clicked request indexing. Was that okay?
Yeah, doesn't hurt.
Oh, okay.
So the first, so let's explain what this error means. And there is, if you go to Curious Ants and you do a search for this error, it will take you to a post explaining you what to do.
Okay.
But let me just give you the short version. So a 5XX is a header code that the server sends Google or whoever is viewing a page when it cannot serve a page. Other header codes might include 404, which I'm sure you've heard of before, when it doesn't find a page. 301, when it's trying to redirect a page from one page to another, or 200, when it's achieved the correct page. Everything's working right, you get a 200 header code. In this case, you're getting a 5 something something. Could be a 500, could be a 501, could be a 505. There's all kinds of numbers within the 500 series. But what this is saying is when Google viewed, in this case, your homepage, after visiting AishaAdamsMedia.com, they encountered a server error, meaning their server couldn't even send a 404 page. The server, there's a glitch in your server. So that is why Google's warning you it couldn't even get to the page. And then being your homepage should be something to worry about.
Well, during the time that it scanned this, my website was set to, like, I use Manage WP, where I can choose to put it and have it put into maintenance mode.
Yep.
Which whenever you go to my website, it'll say, it's in maintenance. So could that have been the issue?
Yep, that could be. That could be. So here's what we want to do. Scroll to the top of your page and click that test live URL button.
I can't see it.
It's right, oh,
Oh,
It's-
yeah.
there you go. It's
guess I have to-
it's a black box on the, there you go. Click on that. So what this is doing is it's Google saying, okay, I'm going to checking it real quick and see if I'm going to get the same error. So whenever you get a 500 error, the first thing to do is just go ahead and click the test live URL. And now everything's fine.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So what happened is, you put it in the testing server. Google happened to come at that point and said, uh-oh, I can't even see the site. There's a server error. But now, because it's apparently no longer in the server, the testing environment, now Google can see it. So you don't have to worry about anything,
Oh, okay.
right?
Perfect.
So what I've seen sometimes is just, sometimes glitches happen and sometimes Google will visit a page and for some odd reason, there'll be a hiccup at the server and it'll tell you this is a problem. All you got to do is just go do a live test and just make sure it's not a permanent problem.
Oh, okay. Thank
So,
you.
yeah, now this should probably tell you that it's probably not a great idea to maintain your server that way. You should probably have a test server and a live server.
Oh,
That
okay.
way you can move things to your test server, monkey with it, and then publish it to your live server. Google will only get to the live server. And that way, if you're doing maintenance, you're making an update or change, Google still has something to see.
Okay.
So that's probably a better way of doing that than it is to take it down into maintenance mode and put it back up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was real easy. No, good question, because you see that I get these, all my clients I get these notifications from all my clients, and sometimes I'll just get random 500 errors, and all right, if that live test didn't work, then your server is a problem. You need to contact your web host, figure out what's going on. But
That was going to be my other question, was the next thing, web host, is if there was an issue. Okay, good.
yeah, because if Google came to a page and they got a 404, but the page is missing, well, they can get the server's serving the 404 page. This is a server issue.
Yeah, I can't even reach it.
And, yeah, because yeah. Cool. That's great. So, Allie, did you bring enough McDonald's French fries for all of us?
Nope.
I'm still obsessing on those fries.
As you should.
There's a restaurant in town called Hello Sailor. They offer beef tallow fries that are so good.
Ooh.
They are like when McDonald's did French fries right. Pure beef tallow is what they used. Oh my goodness, they're so good. Like this is a high-end restaurant and you go for the beef tallow fries just because no one else does beef tallow fries. I'm really hungry.
Clearly.
I'm clearly really hungry. All right. Good thing I got a stash here. All right, Allie, you had a question too.
I do. So as you know, Steffi is our web guru.
Yes.
And we recently are making a change. We do a podcast, and Steffi had suggested we switch to a third-party host because the way we were loading it, the entire podcast was living on our actual website. So I wanted to kind of find out, like, what did that mean for it to live on our website versus doing a third party? Does that affect I'm assuming it affects the website in some way, which is why we're making that switch. And then, just kind of like the intricacies of it, moving forward, and if it affects how things are searched and stuff also.
And I put it in the chat what we recommended and why, and a link to an article about it, which with the quote that actually, if you scroll all the way down, it compares each and every podcast option and it explains in the section that's specific to Anchor, which is what you're using, that it literally says another major issue I just found is that they are the only player that downloads the entire MP3
Oh.
page load, potentially
Wow.
inflating numbers and causing your page to load much slower.
Oh, yeah.
Not recommended.
Yeah. Yeah,
Right.
and especially if that's the case. So
I don't know why it does that, but
no, that's crazy. Yeah.
yeah.
Pardon me as I swallow my Reese's peanut butter cups.
That's okay.
Wow, yeah, and it just so I understand, so I guess the way it is now before any changes, you're actually putting the MP3 on your server on your website and then it's loading there. Yeah, I would think also that would be like a your server, it's a larger file. So at some point your file size, that's gonna may impact stuff with like your monthly hosting and all.
Yeah, that's true too.
So it's kind of a big, I guess, I don't know how many podcasts you have, but definitely move over.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Hosting's a
I
good
think
one.
they're up to 9 or 10, and each one is at least, I think, 2 hours.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Um,
Right.
yeah, and I think that's something we didn't even realize that that's what Anchor was
Yeah.
doing.
That's a very
So-
weird way. I'm very surprised they would do that, but that's, so the real issue here, Allie, goes back to this page speed conversation we keep having,
Mhm.
right? Every asset that loads on your site affects your page speed, and we really need to be paying attention to this, especially because in May of this year, 2021, Google is going to start using page speed, especially 3 web core vitals as ranking factors. So good thing Steffi caught it to prevent this from hurting you.
Yeah.
But even if Google didn't use this as a page speed ranking factor, your customers who would be very interested in looking at your website would not wait for a large file to load to even get there. People are so fickle on the internet. If your page takes more than 3 seconds to load, they just aren't waiting.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same issue. I think we've talked about the idea before of images, and sometimes someone will load like a huge picture.
I used to
It's
do that
super
ages ago
clear.
before I knew.
It ends up being a couple megabytes size, and in case the MP3 could easily be 10 megabytes size. So this is why it was much better to load it from a third-party source
Mhm.
that can host it. It doesn't affect your page speed. Also,
That's the predominant
sorry.
issue is the page speed.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, page speed is
Yeah.
probably the biggest thing that's affecting,
Right.
and like Tricia said too, at a certain point, your host will start charging you for having too much. Now, your host is a really good quality host, so it might not be that big of a deal, but I for performance sake, I would go ahead and use it. Now, you could look into third-party hosting options that maybe allow you an advantage that self-hosting doesn't. So for instance, there are third-party hosting platforms that maybe will allow your website to have a list of all your podcasts there. And so people could discover your podcast outside of even your own website.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So you might be worth looking. This is the same reason why when I record these, and every week I put them on YouTube, and then I post them on my website. YouTube, first of all, is a very lean, mean embedding machine. So it doesn't really hugely hurt my site to have these large videos on my website. Second of all, people discover them for YouTube, right?
Mhm.
So it adds an additional advantage. So for you to be able to do something, your podcast, I feel like could have a really great audience.
Yeah, I would
And to
think.
be able to promote it using one of these systems and then embed it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I have a question. So, is this something, David, she would want to do is like before she does anything, go ahead and since GT Metric metrics is page specific,
Yeah.
put the page that or page or pages to see what it is. And then when you change it, then run them through again and see like the differences.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that would also just kind of,
That's a great experiment to do.
Yeah,
To see,
to
and you
see.
could even test out a couple different platforms to see which one
Yeah.
tends to work better.
yeah.
you
Yeah,
know,
that's true. Yeah.
depending on how much time you wanted to put into it. But yeah,
Are you talking about image optimization at all by chance? You
what?
are, right? Image optimization?
what about it?
Well, it's just that I've tested, like, if you're talking about that, these different tools, and there's one that's just amazing, the Compressor.io. I put it in the chat.
Yeah,
My developer recommended, and like whether you use Photoshop initially to get it to the proper size you want, and or be funky or whatever you squish or whatever you use, fine, do that first. But then run it through this compressor tool. It takes it down like a third or 10 times. I mean, I am like blown away, and it doesn't show any change in the pixels. Like,
wow.
it does not get blurry. And my developer uses it. And I have tested before and after in PageSpeed Insights and see significant increases in the speed.
That's, you have to use their tool, or is it like a plugin that you can use too?
I don't know of a plugin. I use
I'm
their tool.
wondering, I use
upload it.
Short Pixel. I'm wondering how it compares, because sometimes I put mine in, it's like 80% decrease in size, and then it has a thing where you can scroll across and it has the picture and says before and after, so you can see there's really no difference.
Yeah,
I'm
it'll
wondering
say
how it
how much.
compares to that.
Yeah, I don't know. All I know is the best I've ever seen. That's by far.
So compressor.io is the one
Yeah.
you were talking about? Okay,
Mhm.
yeah.
I have some questions when you're ready, though, in the Google Search Console.
Yeah, well, let's make sure we've answered Ally's question. Or have we gotten a clear answer to you on the
Yeah, I
value?
think so, that it's really about the page speed and the whole, like the server and those kind of things. And, it's something that Kara wanted me to ask about because, of course, doing third party is yet again another monthly.
Right.
And, those add up after a
well,
while. But
Is it though a monthly thing that you would have to do? I'm wondering. And I don't do podcasts, like I listen occasionally. But so I know there are things that have monthly stuff to it, but I'm wondering, and David and Steffi, let me know your opinion on this, about just to have it on a third party. You can have it on YouTube and just have an image that just has a voice thing moving and say, here's the video, the audio of it, and do it that way. Would that be an option or no?
I think that could be an option, but I would want to be on a platform that would allow people to
specific
discover
to
me as a
audio.
podcast,
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
I think you're, yeah.
and I make
ahead.
that part of the consideration. First of all, any of these third parties are going to be faster than embedding,
Yeah.
right? Go through and you probably get a trial with a lot of these, test a couple out, and then
And
decide,
pricing.
okay, this one's pretty fast. It's not the fastest, but it is a reasonable price. And at a certain point, you could pay a ton of money and get the fastest solution, but is it going to be really worth it? Maybe, maybe not. However, I think that moving it is the right decision. So don't just take the first one you get, look at a couple, look at some that have really good platforms, look at some of the podcasts there. Heck, you could probably do this by finding a platform and then finding a website that does the same thing and testing their
Testing their
page
website.
speeds,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
seeing how that seems to work before you invest in something. But some of these platforms will automatically sync to things like Apple Podcasts
Yeah.
and things like that. And that could really help you build your audience pretty quick.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm an Apple Podcast listener, but I'm sure there's an equivalent on Android for listening to podcasts.
We don't
Yeah.
use apples here.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a full listing of all the different podcast options in that article.
Okay.
And it gives descriptions for each one and shows your preview of them. it mentions podcast is the top, one of the top ones, I think second or first. And mostly for the interface, it's really clean and you can customize it a little bit.
We
Also,
trust your opinion, Steffi. We went with whatever one you recommended.
what? Oh,
We went with whatever one you recommended as as the one to do.
what, Anchor? I don't think we recommended Anchor.
No, for the
Okay.
Podbean maybe.
Yeah, I would
right?
recommend. I've known people to use it, and I know you can upload like I looked at the plans, and it's like for the free you have up to 5 hours total, 100 gigabytes monthly, and then if you pay for a plan, $9 a month billed annually, which is not a whole lot, and that's unlimited, unmetered.
Oh, wow.
It's not bad.
Well, and since you're gonna be the analytics expert, Ally, you could go to your boss and you can say, hey, I know it costs $9 a month, but because of our podcast, we've generated so many dollars worth of client billable, right? So, yeah, and that's the goal, right?
Yeah.
To that back on the question that I asked, so that now I don't, she's already got some on there, would she want, and I don't know how they're set up. Would it be like domain.com/podcast/ for each one so that she could do that in analytics? Like, you know what I'm trying to say?
Well,
I don't know if the
yeah,
podcast work like that. 'cause
cross channel tracking is a real challenge within Google Analytics.
Mhm.
It's a pretty advanced topic. With Google Tag Manager, it makes it a little easier,
Okay.
but that's a whole nother conversation.
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
first I'm gonna have to go through and like backload all our previous podcasts into the new server and then switch out on the website, which is gonna be
Shouldn't be
a
too bad.
project in itself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think it'll be. Now, you really want to get fancy. What you do is you get those podcasts transcribed.
Mhm.
And now you've got a lot of text content on
Oh,
each
yeah.
of those pages that Google can send people for, right?
Interesting.
Google can't listen to your podcast, but if you
Yeah.
get transcribed, and transcription services I like SpeechPad is my favorite transcription service. Just send them the podcast, they transcribe it, you publish the transcription on your page. Now all those words are now searchable and findable content on your site.
See, that's really interesting because we are also in the process of turning our podcasts into workshops with LearnDash.
Oh, nice.
For continuing education credits because they are 2 hours long. So a transcription for that specifically might actually be really good.
Or
put
best of both worlds, you use a transcription to do the CEU and you have a writer take the transcription and write a summary for your website that's not for continuing education credit, but still gives your site the ability to get traffic from Google for people looking for a topic about what, boy, even if you just did that rather than write blog posts.
Because we do have a page for our podcast that do have like a breakdown of what each podcast is about and like the topic that's discussed. But can you put that link in the chat, the transcription?
Yeah.
Bomber?
SpeechPad.
Ironically, I had a friend who used to do work doing like captioning, like closed captioning.
Yep.
And should she be tagging? Is there a way to tag in podcasts or no? Like you
It
can.
depends on the platform, I suppose.
Okay. Yeah.
But that's why I like getting a third-party platform that also has the ability to build your audience. That justifies the cost a little bit more rather than relying on your website to build your podcast audience. This will help get your exposure and maybe get a link from that website to your website as well, like bonus. Just look, one of the things I've looked at with this, sorry, the cat is attacking birds at the bird feeder. One of the things I'd be really careful about is go through these third-party platforms and see what podcasts they host, and are they credible or is it the low bar for entry? Be careful about low bar for entry because especially for what you do, you need to be amongst credible people, right? You don't
Now,
want to
would
be.
you, when you're talking about like the transcript and like transcribing it, would you then post that separately, like almost as a blog post?
I would post it,
Or
yeah, under, like, have a post for every podcast, embed the podcast here, listen to it here. You can read a summary of it below.
Yeah, all on one page.
Yeah, all on one page.
Video than the text, yeah, or audio. and
yeah,
text.
'cause our podcasts live on a different page than our blogs do, obviously. So that's interesting. Like maybe just changing how we write about it on the blog page. I
Maybe
mean,
create a new category of your blog that's dedicated to podcast.
Or does it have to be a post? It could just be a regular page like she has.
It could be, it could be. Yeah, you don't have to necessarily, it doesn't matter where you put it, as long as it has a page and can be
Its
crawled.
own page, its
Yeah.
own unique page. That's
Yeah.
all. And then sometimes now they're saying, like, you know, if you write a blog post, there's these readers that will read to people. Like if they just don't want to read it, it'll read to
Oh,
them.
yeah, yeah.
There's that too. So it's like the opposite way, you know, like you need to transcribe the podcast, but then for blog posts, you can also create like an audio version of the blog post too. So there's that.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Wow, we're getting there. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
yeah.
All right, does that help?
Yeah. I mean, that went way more in depth than I was expecting.
Story of my life. All right, Steffi, you had a question about Search Console?
Yeah. Can I share my screen?
You may.
Okay, so this bothers me because I've seen it so many times before. And Allie, this is not a reflection of your site that I built. But it happens on all my sites. I don't know why, and it's really bothering me. And it just keeps showing this once in a while. Text too small to read, clickable elements too close together, content wider than screen, all three of them. And then it like goes away. So like it showed for 2 days and then it went away. So I don't even know what pages they're referring to.
So can you click on the scroll down? Okay, yeah, it doesn't even, right.
No, it's
So,
gone.
yeah, it's gone. I've seen this too. It is very annoying. Sometimes Google will, like the 500 errors, sometimes Google is like hypersensitive and freaks out when it sees something going wrong and then realizes everything's okay and just kind of resets. When I see this, so first of all,
Well, it looks bad for me when my clients get a message that says that, and I just built them a new site and it usually
Yeah.
comes out right after the site.
yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree that it might be perceived poorly. I think,
And I can't give them an answer. I'm like, I don't know. It just keeps coming.
I think the answer to the client is sometimes Google gets a little uppity.
Mm-hmm.
And here, the first thing I do when I get this, and it's suddenly out of the blue, because I've seen it on a client that you and I work with, Steffi, before, and it comes across, I get the notification, I'm like, I haven't even changed that page in months.
Yeah.
Why suddenly is it failing mobile usability? And I'll look at it and I'll be like, there's nothing on here. I'll throw it to the mobile test and nothing on here. So it's gotten to the point where whenever I get one of these, especially if it's a page I'm pretty confident is not a problem, I just go ahead and submit it for fix.
Yeah.
I just hit the submit, verify. I think it's validate or verifies is the button you get. I just do that and be like, okay. And then it'll go, oh yeah, we've accepted your fix. And I'm like, I didn't fix anything because there was nothing wrong. And yeah, so
Okay.
just, I think the thing to the client is, hey, client, isn't it nice to know Google's got your back? Good news is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So then there's another thing that I asked you about.
Yeah, yeah.
The events, because they're using this event software,
Yes.
and it's virtual events. So there's no location.
Right.
So we were like, okay. So anyways, I did their updates and then I submitted the fix. And because I realized there was an update for LearnDash, I thought, well, maybe they fixed something in it. So it passed. It's still showing, but it says
Yeah.
0 pages. It's
It says
passed.
0.
And now we still have these warnings, but that is something that was kind of interesting to find. And I don't know what to do
I
about
think
it.
their nomenclature is very confusing. Error means there is something seriously wrong. It needs to be fixed. It is not valid schema. So if in this case, one thing, if for instance you have to put, or you even have the option to put location, you could put online as the location.
You can?
Yeah, why
Allison,
not?
you hear that?
It's just a value.
Okay, try doing that, Allie. See if that might help.
And then with the warnings, that's just, warning is totally the wrong word here. The word should be caution or notice, because it's really
Okay.
more of a like a, hey, you could do this if you wanted to. Well, I don't want to. That's why I didn't put it in there, Google. Why is it a warning? Like I get this for like not putting the price of my services. Well, you want the price of my services, you make me give you a quote. I'm not going to put the prices on my website. That's not the way I want to do business. So like, don't tell me how to do my job, Google. That's your, stay in your lane, Google. So
Okay.
yeah, warning is a terrible phrase here. It should be caution or notice or something significantly less scary than the word warning.
Okay, Allie, you got that. Then put online or virtual or something in the location field if you can. That might help. You got that, Allie?
Yes. No, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the page right now, which is why I was zoning out.
Yeah. Okay, cool. That's all I had. Thank you so
Cool.
much.
Great question. All right. Well, we're running out of time, but we have a little time for another question if you have something.
I have something, but it's gonna probably be too long. So,
You want to tease us with it?
Yeah,
Then
maybe
it'll be
I'll-
a next week teaser.
So,
I'm sorry. Before
yeah.
we move on,
Go ahead.
we
Before
have
we
the
move on.
location as virtual.
Yeah.
Oh, you do?
Oh, you did, huh? And it's still saying,
Like location, venue, virtual, Zoom.
Is that always been there?
I mean, I didn't just add it just now.
Okay.
So I think that's how we've been doing it since.
Well, we might have to
Interesting.
contact the vendor then about it.
Yeah,
if
that
it
would mean the
becomes a
vendor's
problem.
not encoding it correctly.
yeah.
Mhm.
Well,
But it passed, so somehow.
Okay, maybe they suddenly started, maybe they got the notification and all our clients freaked out and they're like, oh no, better fix it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because what happens when Google does this is they'll do it in waves. And so you got notification, and probably a bunch of other sites using their plugin got notification, but you could be like the second wave or the third wave of notifications. So, yeah. I'll watch it, and if it comes up again,
I have a
contact
question
the vendor.
also about location pages that you guys were discussing last week. Like, you know, I've seen before in sites where we do a separate location, like if they have 5 locations, 5 stores, like a hardware store, that we've done different contact pages. But you were talking about like service pages for each service, which was like, wow, I didn't even think about that. But
I think it was more if what we were talking about last week, I think it was more if they have like one big main service and was their main one, that's where we might do it on. And if there are things that differentiate it.
yeah.
What
If they're the same? What if they're all hardware stores? Then what do you do?
well, there's a reason why they have separate locations. So whatever that reason is, should be the distinction between the pages.
But could you create?
Pages, right?
But should you create contact pages, different locations under the contact, or?
Well, that would be a way to do it if as you're doing the keyword research, you notice that people aren't looking for a service based on location. So let's say if I'm going to look for a hardware store, I probably want a dedicated page for each location because I'm going to try to go to a local hardware store.
Yeah.
But if I am providing widgets internationally,
Yeah.
I don't necessarily need a page for every international location because they're all kind of coming through me anyway. So it's really more of a business question than it is an SEO question. You can determine using the keyword research of how important it is. So sometimes you could totally get away with just doing all the locations in the contact page, but sometimes the keyword research is going to show you, no, you really should have a different location for each service based on what, and for instance, in this case, I would, as I was doing keyword research for hardware store, I would be paying attention to, do geography names keep coming up as I'm doing keyword research? Is Google suggesting to me that I might want a hardware store in a location?
Yeah.
Even if it's not the location that I have a hardware store in, it's associating names of places with the hardware store, then I should say, well, I should probably do the same thing. I should probably have a hardware store in this location, this location, this location. If, as I'm doing the keyword research, it doesn't seem to be connected as a geographical service, then you don't need to. Google will associate specific topics with ideas like, this is a geospecific topic, or this topic doesn't really have a connection to geography. And so through the keyword research process, you should be able to determine, does Google seem to be connecting a geography with these kinds of services? If it does, then we probably need to do that. But sometimes there are services not. So like computer programming might not be a service that's geographically focused, but grocery stores are.
And giving directions on the page is sometimes good too, and giving them a different Google business listing.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
If you have to do a Google business listings for each one, you should have a dedicated page for each one.
Yeah. And you need to embed those. There's a lot of different stuff for Google My Business.
Yeah. Embed what, the map or something?
The map specific to your location, not just like the address, like where it shows your rankings and everything.
Yeah. Yeah. And then directions on the page, like spelled out, I heard is good.
Is it so? Probably. But the one good thing about having that embedded map, when they click on that, it opens up the Google map where they just put, say, here I am, and do the directions in the map, which most people nowadays want. But the directions it makes, it has like turn here, turn, it has the street name. So that might help, I guess, as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Well, I love that we're kind of all over the place today with all these diverse range of questions.
And can I tease for next week? I'm going to put my question in, but David, I want you to tell me if I haven't gotten to this part yet.
Okay.
So if I need to do research before.
Read ahead.
Yes. So it's on like pillar content. So I understand like the pillar content and then your other content related.
Yeah.
Whatever all they're called. So I understand like if I'm writing on the page, okay, I've got my pillar and I've got my other pieces around it. So then my next question is like, how is that related to the layout on the website? That part. So like, if that makes sense to you?
Yes.
Question?
So
Okay.
the
So
way I talk about it in Curious Ants is landing pages versus blog posts. So
Okay.
landing pages are the hub, and blog posts are the spokes.
Okay.
So, and it's internal links, not just navigation that gets
Yeah.
you there. So
I do need to go and read a part.
yeah,
that
so we can get into a little more depth with that.
Okay. I'll check and see what I haven't gotten to on that yet, and then see what other questions I have.
Yeah, sounds great.
Okay.
All right. Well, everybody, thank you for lifting my week up. I don't feel as bad anymore.
Good. I'm glad.
You're awesome, David, no matter what anyone says.
Oh, thank you. All right. Well, tell everybody have a great week.
You too.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
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 Bye.